Next matchup, nice and early in the morning for you. I'm talking about the Giants taking on the Packers. 9:30 Sunday morning in London. Green Bay is -8, totals 41.5. And for those who don't know, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, it's an outdoor stadium, although the seating areas are covered by a roof. So either way, it kind of reminds me of that old Dallas Cowboys stadium where like a patch of the field would get wet if it was bad weather. But regardless, if it does rain, the players and field will get wet here. The fans won't. And speaking of the weather, it will be mild and cool in London on Sunday morning. Actually, is not morning for them. I don't know if you guys realize this, but even though it's morning time here in America, it'll be early evening in London at kickoff. So we're probably going to see some early showers in London and then some possible rain during the game, but nothing extensive, nothing soaking. Looking about maybe 9-mile-an-hour winds by kickoff. Not really sure how the wind is going to, affect that stadium because it's so covered, in the grandstand area. But regardless, I don't think weather is going to be a huge issue. Now, injury-wise, Taylor and Jones are banged up. Could be game-time decisions at that quarterback position. Williams, Glowinski, Galladay, Love, Tony, Neal, Flott, and Robinson, they're all listed as questionable for New York. Meanwhile, for Green Bay on the other side, Amos and Alexander, they are listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the total, Green Bay is 3-1 to the under thus far in this season. New York's 4-0 to the under themselves. Now, if you want to see whether I'm making a play on the spread or the money line in this one, this game's being featured as one of my NFL tier package bets on my website this weekend. And the link for my website is in the description section below. But as far as making a free pick is concerned, I'm going to lean toward the under 41.5 in that game. Next matchup, Steelers-Bills, 1 o'clock East. Buffalo's -14, totals 47.5. And even though I hate this double-digit number here, the Bills should be able to take care of business. They're 3-1 straight up in the year, and they failed to cover only once during that span. And if Pittsburgh's quarterback situation wasn't bad enough, they're going up against the #1 pass defense in Buffalo. I know people get excited about Kenny Pickett. He's a first-year guy. He's not used to the speed. It's going to be very difficult for a guy who's had very little experience, very young guy. It's going to be tough for him to keep this one close. Now, for the Buffalo Bills, Jordan Poyer, he has 4 interceptions on the year. Greg Rousseau and Von Miller, they've combined for 7 sacks. And aside from allowing only 14 points a game, the Bills are in the top 3 in fewest yards allowed per contest. Now, they're facing a Steeler team who has all sorts of problems on offense. For one, they just can't move the football. They're in the bottom 3 in offensive yards per contest. And even when they do move the football, well, it's not really converting into points. These guys are averaging only 18 points a game. And of course, as you guys know, as I just mentioned, I'm never too keen on first-year quarterbacks on this channel. Buffalo is going to be a real challenge for Kenny Pickett. First year, not a whole lot of experience in the system, in the scheme, terminology, and speed of the game. Please get that through your heads, guys. First-year quarterbacks are tough. The whole Trey Lance craze before he got hurt really bothered me because I don't care how much talent the guy has. He hasn't played consistently with this amount of speed and experienced players and just the smartness of the game that any professional athlete possesses. They know the game better than college players do. Anyway, injury-wise, Witherspoon, Edmonds, and Fitzpatrick are questionable for Pittsburgh. Meanwhile, for Buffalo, Phillips, Kumro, Crowder, McKenzie, Oliver, and Benford are questionable for them. Now, weather-wise, might be a little breezy in upstate New York, partly cloudy and 54 by kickoff, but possible 15-mile-an-hour winds. So if you got a kicker in fantasy, you may want to look at the weather report closer to Sunday and more specifically, take a look at the wind, see where it's blowing. Now, total-wise, Buffalo saw their last 2 straight fall under the number, 3-1 to the under in their last 4. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh saw 2 out of their last 3 fall under the total themselves, throwing out that Jets game. I'm going to lean toward Buffalo minus 14, under 47.5. Next ball game, Lions, Patriots, 1 o'clock East. The Pats are minus 3, totals 45.5. Now, New England's failed to cover in 3 out of their last 4 ball games. They're having a pretty tough time scoring points. They're averaging only 18 points a game, and they may have to go to work Sunday with a third-string quarterback because Mac Jones and Brian Hoyer, they are both banged up right now. But even if Mac or Brian are healthy to go Sunday, we're still looking at a Patriot defense on the other side of things who struggled stopping the run this year. They're in the bottom 10 in the league in rush defense. They're facing a Detroit team who's had little issue on the offensive side of things. As a matter of fact, these guys are averaging 35 points a game. And they're gaining more yards a game than any other club in the league. Jared Goff's thrown for over 1,100 yards along with 11 touchdowns. Meanwhile, this Detroit O-line's pretty much allowing these backs to rush for nearly 6 yards a carry. Now, injury-wise, Chark, Owarie, Seibert, Jackson, Cephas, and St. Brown, they are all questionable. DeAndre Swift, he is out. Meanwhile, for New England, Hoyer and Jones, they are officially listed as questionable. Myers, Smith, and Mills also may not go. And unfortunately, defensive end Lawrence Guy, he's been ruled out for Sunday. Now, weather-wise, 57 degrees and partly cloudy by kickoff. 10-mile-an-hour winds possible. When it comes to total, New England saw their last 2 straight get over the number. Meanwhile, Detroit's 4-0 to the over themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the Lions plus 3, over 45.5. Next game, Bears, Vikings, 1 o'clock East. Minnesota's minus 7, totals 43.5. But as good as Minnesota's looked here recently, I really don't like this number. The Vikes failed to cover in their last 3 straight, and they're having problems slowing down the run. Matter of fact, Minnesota's in the bottom 10 in the league right now in rush defense. They're also giving up nearly 400 total yards of offense per game. Now they're facing a Chicago team who loves to run the football themselves. These guys are actually in the top 3 in the league in rush yards per contest. And when it comes to defensive play, not many teams are defending the pass better than Chicago. These guys are allowing under 170 yards a game through the air. Eddie Jackson has 3 interceptions along with 30 tackles and a forced fumble. Meanwhile, Roquan Smith, he leads the team with 46 tackles along with 2 PDs and a pick. Now, as a team, the Bears have covered against the likes of Houston and San Francisco. When it comes to the injury report, Santos, Cruikshank, Adams, and Johnson are questionable. Santos is Chicago's kicker, so keep an eye on him, once again, if you're a fantasy player. Meanwhile, for Minnesota, on the other side, Andrew Booth is questionable for them. Now, weather-wise, the Vikes play inside, so it really doesn't matter unless you plan on tailgating outside if you're going to the game. But I'll let you follow the weather at your own discretion if you're a tailgater in Minnesota. But anyway, total-wise, I actually wouldn't be entirely shocked if this one did somehow get over the number. Chicago did see their Week 3 contest against Houston get 4 points over the line. Meanwhile, Minnesota saw their last 2 straight get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean towards Chicago plus 7, keeping this one close, over 43.5. Next ball game, little AFC South action. I'm talking about the Texans at the Jaguars, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. Jacksonville's minus 7, totals 44.5. Now, I do really hate laying this number here. I think this is a bigger number for a Jacksonville team who's, got some loose ends here. I don't think Jacksonville's really in any position to be laying 7 points. Having said that, though, they've played like a lot better than Houston already. I think they've played much better than Houston. This Jags defense is allowing only 16 points per contest, and they're a top 10 rush defense in the league. Foy Oluwakin has 38 tackles along with a couple of fumble recoveries. Meanwhile, Devin Lloyd has 6 PDs, couple of picks, and 38 tackles himself. When it comes to offensive production, the Jags are, they're definitely scoring points. I know Trevor Lawrence has his struggles at times, especially with protecting the football, but they are scoring points. They're averaging nearly 27 points a game, which is well above the league average. They're facing a winless Houston team who's having a hard time slowing anyone down. They're in the bottom 3 in stopping the run, and they're giving up well over 400 yards a game. Now, when it comes to offensive production, the Texans are scoring only 18 points a game, and they're in the bottom 10 in total yards per contest. When it comes to the injury report, Brown, Yadam, Cashman, and Jordan, they are listed as questionable. Meanwhile, for Jacksonville, Jones, Fatukasi, and Van Lanen, they are listed as questionable for them. Now, weather-wise, going to be a pretty warm one in Florida. 77 degrees by kickoff with moderate clouds. We're also looking at 13-mile-an-hour winds potentially. So once again, keep an eye on the wind if you have fantasy kickers in this matchup here. Now, total-wise, I don't see the Texans scoring a whole lot of points. They did see 2 out of their last 3 fall under the total, throwing out that Charger game. Meanwhile, Jacksonville saw their Week 2 contest against Indianapolis fall 20 points below the total. I'm going to lean toward Jacksonville -7, under 44.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Seahawks Saints, 1 o'clock East. New Orleans is -5.5, totals 45. Now, the Saints are on a 3-game skid, and they covered the number only 1 time this season. And for a team who doesn't score a whole lot of points, the Saints defense does just, have to do better. They've allowed 20 points or more in all 4 of their contests this season. They're facing a Seahawks team on the other side who actually just hung up 48 on Detroit. And believe it or not, Seattle's having little issue moving the football. They're actually in the top 10 in the league right now in total yards per contest. Geno Smith is completing over 77% of his throws, and he's averaging over 250 yards a game passing. Very efficient numbers for Smith. Not doing too much, not doing too little. Just really managing the game and giving you chances to win. Now, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, they're combining for nearly 150 yards a game receiving together. And when it comes to this Seahawks franchise as a team, well, they've gotten wins over the likes of Detroit and Denver this year. They successfully covered the number in both of those victories. Now, injury-wise, Coleman and Blunt are questionable for the Seahawks. Meanwhile, for the Saints, Winston, Thomas, Pete, Kamara, and May are questionable for them. And when it comes to the weather, well, the Saints are in the dome, so no weather there. When it comes to the total, New Orleans saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the line, throwing out that Carolina game. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, the Seahawks saw their last 2 straight get over the total themselves. So with all that said and done, I'm actually going to go ahead and lean toward Seattle +5.5 over 45. Next contest, it is going to be Titans at the Commanders, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff on Sunday. Tennessee's -3 in Landover, totals 42.5. And even though the Titans look solid over the past couple of weeks, defense definitely concerns me with these guys. They're allowing over 25 points a game, and they've had little success slowing down the passing attack. These guys currently find themselves in the bottom 5 in the league right now in pass defense. And when it comes to offensive production, well, I'll tell you what, really not much to brag about. Not much doing there either. These guys are scoring only 18 points a game, and they currently find themselves in the bottom 5 in total yards per contest. They're facing a Commanders team on the other side of things who does actually gain nearly 4.5 yards per carry on the ground, so they do have the ability to run the football. Meanwhile, defensively, Jamin Davis has 3 sacks along with 18 tackles and a couple of TFLs. Now, injury-wise, Schweitzer, Eifler, and Butler, they're listed as questionable for Washington. Meanwhile, for Tennessee, Cunningham, Adonai, Amadi, Hooker, and Burks, they are questionable for them. Now, weather-wise, going to be sunny and 63 in the nation's capital. Should be a beautiful day. 8-mile-an-hour winds possible. When it comes to the total, 2 out of Washington's last 3 got over the number, throwing out that Dallas game. Meanwhile, Tennessee on the other side, they saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the line themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Washington +3 over 42.5. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Dolphins at the Jets, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. Miami's -3.5, totals 43 and a hook. And even though Teddy Bridgewater's a very serviceable, let's try to spit that out again, very serviceable backup for Miami. Of course, I'm talking about Teddy Bridgewater, serviceable guy. But I am really concerned about Miami's defense. These guys are second to last in the league in pass yards allowed per contest. As a matter of fact, they're giving up over 400 yards of total offense per game. Now, they're facing a Jets team who's got no issue moving the chains. These guys are in the top 5 in passing. They're gaining more yards a game than most clubs in the AFC. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of the ball, C.J. Mosley's leading the charge with 41 tackles and a couple of TFLs. And of course, when I mention TFL, that means tackle for loss. Meanwhile, teammate LaMarcus Joyner, he has a pair of interceptions from that secondary. But this Jets defense, they're in the top 10 in the league in fewest yards allowed. When it comes to the injury report, New York's relatively healthy at the moment. Meanwhile, for Miami, Tua's out. Long, Wilson, and Carter are questionable. And when it comes to the weather, going to be sunny and 58 degrees in the swamps of New Jersey. Might see a 10-mile-an-hour wind on Sunday as well. Now, when it comes to the total, these defenses do tend to give up their fair share of points. The Jets are actually, they saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the total. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, the Dolphins have allowed a considerable amount of points. They've actually allowed 28 points a game on average in their last 3 straight. I'm going to lean toward the New York Jets +3.5, keeping this one close, over 43 and a hook. Next ball game, it is going to be Falcons at the Bucs, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. Now, Tampa Bay is -9, totals 48.5. Now, I'm not sure that Tampa Bay's offense is clicking enough to lay a 9-point number here. The Bucs are averaging just 20 points a game. And they're actually in the bottom 3 in rushing. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of the ball, well, as a team, these guys are on a 2-game skid. And defensively, they've allowed 55 total points during that time frame, during that 2-game stretch. Now, they're facing an Atlanta team who's been absolute covering machines this year. They're actually a perfect 4-0 against the spread this season. So if you've been betting them, you've been cashing in. If you've been fading them, you've been losing. The Falcons, they actually got the outright W in their last 2 straight as well. This Falcons offense is scoring 26 points a game, and they're rushing for more yards per contest than most clubs in the NFC. Matter of fact, the Falcons are averaging over 5 yards per carry on the ground. When it comes to defensive play, Grady Jarrett has 16 tackles and 3.5 sacks. Now, injury-wise, Cordero Patterson, he's on the IR with a knee. Meanwhile, for Tampa Bay on the other side, Ryan, Brate, Perriman, and Davis are questionable. Akeem Hicks is out with a foot. Now, weather-wise, going to be a hot one in South Florida. These guys are going to have to hydrate. 82 degrees and 65% humidity by kickoff. And when it comes to the total, the Bucs did see their most recent outing get over the line. Meanwhile, Atlanta's 3-1 to the over themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Falcons +9, over 48.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Chargers at the Browns, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff. The LA Chargers are -3 in Cleveland, totals 47.5. The Chargers are 3-1 against the spread on the year, and they're throwing for more yards a game than any other team in the league. Justin Herbert, he's throwing for over 310 yards a game, along with 9 touchdowns. Now, the Chargers are facing a Browns defense who's allowing 24 points a game, and they took the loss in 2 out of their last 3. As a matter of fact, Cleveland's giving up 23 points or more 3 times already through 4 ball games. When it comes to offensive production, well, Cleveland, these guys are little threat throwing the football. They're gaining only 197 yards a game through the air. When it comes to the injury report, Clowney, Hubbard, and Garrett are questionable. Meanwhile, for the Chargers on the other side, Allen and Parham are questionable for them. So keep an eye on those guys. That could potentially affect this passing game. When it comes to the weather, should be sunny and 55 by kickoff. Although we could see 15-mile-an-hour winds. Should be a little breezy here, so keep an eye on your fantasy kickers. Now, total-wise, LA saw their last 2 straight get over the number. Meanwhile, Cleveland's gone 3-1 to the over in their last 4. I'm going to lean toward the Chargers, -3, over 47.5. Next matchup, it is going to be Niners at the Panthers, 4:05 Eastern start time in Charlotte. San Francisco is -6.5 on the road, totals 39. Now, the Niners won 2 out of their last 3. And they may have the best defense in the league. These guys allowed just 9 points a game on average in their last 3 outings. They're also giving up fewer yards a game on defense than any other franchise in the NFL. Nick Bosa leads the league in sacks with 6 of them. Meanwhile, Dre Greenlaw, he has a team-best 38 tackles along with 3 TFLs. And if you have concerns about the Niners' offense, well, just keep in mind they are one of the best rushing teams in the NFC right now, doing a great job running the football. Now, they're facing a Carolina defense who's actually struggled slowing down the run themselves. The Panthers are actually in the bottom 10 in the league in rush yards allowed. Meanwhile, offensively, well, this is arguably the worst offense in the league. They're gaining fewer yards a game than any other club in the NFL. And of course, that should come as much of a delight to Shannon Sharp, who just absolutely shits on Baker every single day. Now, injury-wise, Chin and Chenault, they are questionable. Meanwhile, for the Niners, Croft, Armstead, Moore, Kinlaw, Jennings, and Gray are questionable for them. Let me try to turn this TV off, guys. It's not going off. Give me 1 sec. I have to get up and physically turn the TV off. That is amazing. What the hell? There we go. All right. And like I said, guys, for the Niners, Croft, Armstead, Moore, Kinlaw, Jennings, and Gray, they are questionable for San Francisco. Now, weather-wise, should be a beautiful day in Charlotte. Looks like 66 degrees, sunny skies, and very little wind. When it comes to the total, the Panthers saw their last 3 straight all fall under the number. Meanwhile, San Francisco's 4-0 to the under themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Niners, -6.5, under 39. Next matchup, Cowboys-Rams, 4:25 East. The LA Rams are 4.5. Total is 43. And even though they're laying 4.5 points, this Rams offense has been terrible this year. These guys are scoring only 17 points a game, and they've done very little to establish the run. Matter of fact, these guys are in the bottom 3 in the entire league in rush yards per contest. They're facing a tough Dallas defense who's allowing only 15 points a game, and they're in the top 10 in fewest yards allowed. And this Cowboys pass rush has also been just absolutely ferocious. They have 15 sacks already, and they're led by Micah Parsons, who's got 4 of those sacks by himself. And of course, when you have Micah Parsons on the field, lining up on the edge, lining up in the linebacker spot, lining up in the middle, it does do fits for your offensive scheme. It does fits for your O-line and their blocking schemes. Now, Donovan Wilson, he's leading the charge with 33 tackles along with 2 PDs and a pick. When it comes to the injury report, Kearse and Lewis are questionable for Dallas. Meanwhile, for the Rams, Shelton, Long, Edwards, and Durant are questionable for them. When it comes to the total, LA's gone 3-1 to the under thus far in the year. Meanwhile, Dallas, they've gone 3-1 to the under themselves. I'm going to lean toward Dallas plus 4.5, under 43. Next ball game, it is going to be Eagles, Cardinals, 4:25 East. Philadelphia's -5, totals 48. Now, injury-wise, Slay, Seumalo, Maddox, Mailata, and Scott, they're all listed as questionable for Philadelphia. Not ruled as out yet, so keep an eye on those guys. Keep an eye on their status by kickoff. Meanwhile, for the Cards on the other side, Green, Pugh, Vigil, Turner, and Lawrence, they are listed as questionable for them. When it comes to the total, Arizona saw their opener weeks ago against Kansas City fly double digits over the total. Meanwhile, the Eagles saw 2 out of their last 3 get over the total themselves, throwing away that Washington game. And if you want to see whether I'm betting on the money line or against the spread in this ball game, this game's being featured as one of my NFL tier package bets on my website. And once again, guys, the link for my website is in the description section below. But as far as making a free pick is concerned, I'm going to lean toward the over 48 in that game. Next matchup, it is going to be Bengals-Ravens, 8:20 Eastern start time, Sunday Night Football. Baltimore's -3 at home, totals 48.5. And as shaky as the Ravens have looked, they are 3-1 against the spread overall for the season. They're also having little problems putting up points on the board. They're averaging 30 points a game, and they rank in the top 10 in rushing. They're facing a Bengals team who does little to establish the run themselves. Very little support for Joey B. These guys are gaining just 89 yards a game on the ground, which is at the bottom of the barrel in the AFC. And, of course, they also let their best player take an awful lot of punishment. They did it last year. They're doing it again this year. I don't know if Joe's running himself into sacks. I don't know what's going on, but he gets hit just way too much. Joey B's been sacked 16 times already through 4 ball games. He's on pace for over 65 sacks this year at this rate. That's a prime formula for injury. You can't have it happen. Run him out. The O coordinator's got to do something to protect this guy because obviously the O-line can't. Now, injury-wise, Sample's out with a knee for Cincy. Meanwhile, for Baltimore, Houston, Stanley, and Macari are banged up for them. Weather-wise, clear and cool for the Sunday night game in Baltimore. Should be 57 degrees, very little wind. Beautiful night in the Inner Harbor. Now, total-wise, 2 out of Baltimore's last 3 outings did get over the number. I'm going to lean toward the Ravens, -3, over 48.5. Next and final game for the video, it is going to be Raiders at the Chiefs, 8:15 Monday Night Football. Kansas City's -7.5, totals 51 and a hook. Now, injury-wise, Bucker and Dana are still questionable for Kansas City. Meanwhile, for the Raiders, Perryman, Renfro, and Yassine are questionable for them. When it comes to the weather, partly cloudy and warm on Monday Night Football. Should be a very warm 75 degrees, low humidity, and possibly 9-mile-an-hour winds, so pretty comfortable night in Kansas City. Now, if you want to see whether I'm betting on the money line total or against the spread in this one, this game is being featured as another one of my NFL tier package bets on my website, and the link for that package is in the description section below. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. I like Denver -3, under 43.5. I also like the under 41.5 in the Giants-Packers game. Give me Buffalo -14, under 47 and a hook. Detroit +3, over 45.5. Chicago +7, over 43 and a hook. Jacksonville -7, under 44.5. Seattle +5.5, over 45. Washington +3, over 42.5 points. New York Jets +3.5, over 43 and a hook. Atlanta +9, over 48.5. LA Chargers -3, over 47 and a hook. San Francisco -6.5, under 39. Dallas +4.5, under 43. I like the over 48 in the Philadelphia-Arizona game. Give me Baltimore -3, over 48.5. And I have no free pick for the Raiders-Chiefs game. That contest is being featured as one of my NFL tier package bets on my website. Now, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on patreon.com/BrockPage. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy NFL Week 5 to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.